Hey crew, welcome back to this month's Metabolic Stability, April 2017. I think we have a really important topic to talk about this month, and that's just overall shoulder health and the ability to go vertical overhead. People are really hesitant about that. I'm not quite sure why. I don't think it's from acute issues, but we're going to kind of fold in and layer in, just like always, a lot of different stuff. I feel like we're going to put out a lot of really good options, especially on my end of things this month. I'm not sure what Josh's is going to be right now, but I know it's going to be good. And we're going to layer in, kind of talk about some of the problems. People are really, and maybe it is part of the problem, possibly, people are very, again, hesitant to go over, but they're not unhesitant to be here. And I feel like there's still a lot of here, and I understand there's a lot of pressure, especially if you're working with clients, to get them to that first push-up maybe, and we want to let them do it and have success, but sometimes that's coming at a cost that may be ultimately too great further down the line. We want to think longitudinally and not near term, right? So we're going to talk about a good bit of that in my section. I'm going to use a fair bit of equipment this month. I usually only stick to a couple things, but if you look over here off to the side, I've even got that yellow mini band out, so be prepared to take a look at that. That's something new for me. I've been aware and used them frequently for years, but I've never put them in a metabolic stability video with one of my pieces of stuff, so be prepared for that. But we're going to talk about shoulder health. We're going to talk about being able to go overhead. I think it's really important to be able to get a load, no matter how low, and we see a lot of people doing really light stuff, really light things, and I don't know if that's equitable. Most people jam-pack that carry-on bag full of at least 30 pounds of stuff. You got to be able to get overhead, right? So that's what we're going to talk about this month. I think we have some great solutions and a lot of great options. So,
all right, guys. So again, another DBRT drill that sort of gets easily overlooked is the arc press. It's such a powerful drill because it is a unilateral press and pull, as well as introducing more frontal plane stability. So especially if you have clients who have a hard time getting in a side plank position because of shoulder issues, this is a great way to sort of feed in some of those concepts. I'm just going to quickly demonstrate doing a arc press from a half kneeling position. So one of the benefits of doing it from half kneeling is obviously we get a little bit more of that asymmetrical hip position. Couple keys we want to really emphasize. One is a super active grip by both hands. A lot of people relax their hands. We want to tightly grip the hands. Secondly is elbow position. See how the elbow stays close to her body, but the outside elbow flares out. Okay, so this becomes a push, and then it becomes a pull on the other side. So you want to tightly squeeze the entire time. So you're going to squeeze, press through the ground with both legs, and slowly go. So speed's important too. We're aiming for about 3 to 5 count side to side without moving your head. Just going to dump down the sandbag for a second. Another thing is understand that the push and pull are coming from the legs. So I have just going to, let's say she's going to try to press my arm up. If she relaxes her feet and tries to press, she's got no strength or stability. But if she presses into the ground, she's now really strong. So again, the push doesn't come just from the upper body. It comes from ground engagement from the ground up. So those are a couple of keys. Now what we're going to do, and a lot more of those variations are played out in restoration, is show you how you can improve hip mobility and core stability by using a little bit of feedback. So a lot of times, a lot of people have hip flexor issues, the tight hip flexors, as we've talked about, that can be somewhat in response to a weak core. Now, the way we can get around both the flexibility and the core stability is by doing an arc press with a super band feedback. What I'm going to do is I'm going to loop this around her back leg to give her a little traction. So I don't want to be pulling her over. I want her to feel as though she has to push through that back foot, keep that stability in, and that will feel like it's opening up that hip joint. She should be going into the lumbar extension into the movement. The band's also going to make her, again, forcibly push down the ground. So let's just go loop it around. So you want to follow that right around the hip area. So this is going to be the back side. And we want about that 99 degrees. This is going to make her push through both feet. She's going to slowly drive and pull down. So what we would do is we obviously would end up doing this to both sides. And I'm watching this, her hips in straight alignment. Does her feet go a straight line to her hips, or is she bring her leg in or out, more likely in, and is the front leg straight out from her hip as well. You'll find that people after doing this quickly feel a release in that hip flexor because it's reinforced with active work and core stability and ground engagement. that release lasts longer, especially as they get walking around and performing other movements.
Okay, as good as ultimate sandbags are, there are some limitations in the fact, especially with an arc press, that you have a dimensional component, meaning that smaller USBs generally work better for arc pressing because they're more compact and don't have that floppy action. You can use bigger bags, but they need to be more filled. So obviously the load goes up quite a bit and that becomes a very heavy one-arm press. So one of the things we can do to make a lightweight feel heavier is not just change body position, but we can give different vectors of force and feedback. So I've just got back in a more stable tall kneeling position, and now having a band around her waist, she's now, when she does the arc press, she's got to resist. I can decide how much of that frontal plane force I want her to experience, and I can actually change gently where that is coming from. Now my limitation, or how much I use, is going to be dependent upon what she's able to maintain proper position and alignment for. If we simply move to a half kneeling position in a moment, you're going to see that this makes it more challenging. So again, I don't have to change the load, I can change body position, I can just change where I am with the band, and that will give her another way of getting feedback from that frontal plane and pelvic control in this type of series. So just like before, changing vectors of force is a really unique attribute of adding the core strap to these exercises. So now we're going to move Jessica back to a little bit more stable position and being tall kneeling, so she's symmetrical. So as she goes through the movement, she's just going to go to the crown of her head, and then she's going to bring it back to the same side. So again, we're not going to go side to side, but what the band is doing in the core strap is forcing her in that frontal plane stability, really getting that ground engagement. We could simply progress the movement by going to half kneeling, and depending upon which leg is forward, it's going to feel different, okay, because her base stability is going to be a little different. So again, the opposite leg forward, woo-hoo-hoo. She's really got to grab the ground and pull it back in. I just want to give her enough feedback to where she's not altering her position and posture. And if you switch legs around, it obviously would be a little different feeling. So again, it's not right or wrong, but it will be different. So you can cycle this seamlessly in your programming just by changing body position and vectors of force, using these principles of load placement and body position and changes of plane of motion. So another way to make a lighter weight feel heavy is to give another vector of force. So now what I've done is I've attached our core strap to a super band, and when she now presses it, she's going to be pulled back. So this is going to do two things. One, it's going to reinforce her pushing into the ground with her legs. It's also going to have her work the anti-extension moment more. So the whole great thing about overhead pressing in general is we have this anti-extension we should be trying to create, but only doing that is for creating a stable pelvis. So the pelvis has instability or is not creating strength from the ground up. You're going to find that a lot of people end up elevating their ribs. The quickest fix to that is reinforcing them in the ground to push down in their feet and to keep those lats tight. That will give them feedback upon how to keep that plank as they're performing the movement. All right, so a lot of people are probably very familiar with doing mini band walks and monster walks, so forth. So the thing is that when you think about how the glutes work, they don't work in isolation. So they work with the core and the lats, as we've talked about all throughout. And plus, we have things like the adductors working with the external, with the obliques. So we want to tie in these chains. So, but no better way of doing this is taking your classic lateral band walk and adding a pressing movement, specifically either in that arc press or press out series. So we're going to start arc press because it's a little easier than the leverage point of the press out. So if Jessica's set up with a bag upon her right shoulder, she's going to step out to the left first. And when she gets in that stance, now she's going to hold herself as she slowly presents a arc press. Steps in and then comes back. So again, what you're doing is you're just working back and forth, and what we're looking for is, does she, again, go into rib flare as she goes into the motion? Is she ground engaging? Is she putting pressure against the band? Is she doing an active push and pull? Nice, Jess. Now, again, if we didn't want to actually change the weight of the ultimate sandbag, we could do the same thing into an arc press out. Now, because the leverage is going to be a little bit more challenging, but you're going to get more core activation. So again, the same thing. She would load up her shoulder first, then as she comes out, across, and then slowly come back. Stepping first, setting up her body, crush gripping the bag, make sure the crease of the elbow is up, so we're tying in the lat, core, and glute, and knocking into the shoulder and upper traps. So again, if we didn't want to increase the weight of the ultimate sandbag, if that was a limiting factor, what we could add is, again, that extra vector of force, and this is where that Aries sled comes in really handy again. So what we're going to do now is, we have the mini band, we have the bag, but we've added a little bit more lateral force to her. So when she steps, she's going to be really loaded up to that hip. Now she's going to press and pull. And now she's going to alternate shoulders. She's going to again step, press, and pull. So again, just by changing a little bit more frontal plane stress, we're getting a little bit more feedback to her body, making that same weight feel heavier. And of course, we could also do that with the arc press out over time as well to make it a little bit more challenging.
So this is my part of the actual exercise part for this month's metabolic stability. I've got like 5 things. I'm gonna try to put them in order of like going from a really bad piece of shoulder case, whatever it may be, whether it's maybe acute, probably not though, to just really bad shoulder function, and I'm going to move it on through the hierarchy. So I'm going to start actually on the ground with just the mini band, and it's going to be movement based actually. If we think about when we've heard us talk in metabolic stability previously about getting that hip engaged, really grounding yourself with your foot via your hip. You want to think about the same way here, right? Grounding yourself in your shoulder via your hands. So we want to be able to have that hand do some work. So we're just going to anchor up here. You probably have seen this before, but this again, we're starting from lowest level and we're going to progress up. So just out here, and we're just going to take some small steps. We're going to tighten everything up, and we're just going to move, right? In and then back out, in, out and then back in, right? Super simple stuff, but it's just working this, right? If I move a little bit laterally, right, with that. So that's our start point. Next place, and I'm going to give you a couple great options here, is I think we need to be able to hold. So we've worked understanding this kind of wax on, wax off stuff, right? And now we're going to bring the kettlebells into place. So just a pair of kettlebells. If you have to load them up for your clients, that's cool. You don't have to teach them how to clean if that's not your thing. It's our thing here, but it may not be your thing. Right, and just holding in this position, you can see, I'm gonna come in a little bit closer. You can see like I'm tightened underneath, I'm not arching, right? I can't round forward if I'm tight underneath. Got my arms down, got some nice space here, I'm not over the top or here, right? I'm just holding, right? So you tell me, hey Troy, my clients don't like how that feels on their forearm, too much pressure. I say, okay, cool, I got you. So, another tool, you don't see it as much out of me. It's usually on Josh's end of things, but, and is it exactly the same? The answer is no, but it's still pretty darn good. So, clean to fist, right? Look at this. I'm still right in this position. I'm fist, I've got a super nice soft sandbag on top of my fist, and I can still load it very appropriately. So if you have issues with the kettlebell in the clean position, forearm pressure, I think on the fist is probably a great option for you, an accessible option. If your client can't clean it, again, you can pick it up for them. You're the coach, right? One thing I would warn against is it doesn't work with these handles, right, folks? We know that now, though, right? So there's that aspect. So let's get ourselves closer to vertical pressing. Simple. We're not going to get vertical yet because we might have some hesitations, and we want to ultimately have a lot of control over exposing ourselves in that place. But we're going to bring the mini band back and that 12-inch box behind me. All we're going to do is just take some tiny steps. The tendency is going to be for us to take big steps, right? But we just want to take little ones. And little ones, you can see, if I have to stop here, that's cool. If I can get a little further, but you can see some time under tension, accessing that core, and also, again, keeping that thing that we first started working on together as we move towards vertical. So let's put our final piece together. We always talk about being able to use our smaller kettlebells. Honestly, you could disagree with me if you want, that's cool, but people like to use the bottoms up press. I think we have a couple maybe variants we're going to see here in just a second that might let you reconsider a progression to that if you're still going to use it. So we're accessing our lighter kettlebells, right? So we're going to bring in that sprinter stance here in a second. I'm going to walk away. What I got, this is going to be my presser. This is going to be my holder. All I'm going to do is set up here, here and here, and press, right? Here and here, press. But then I can add a little movement to it, right? I'm gonna come back, press, press, right? Simple stuff. Obviously, if you have same size kettlebells, you could turn that into a flow, if you will, if you can see where I'm going there. I didn't do it with I had the 24 kilo on the hold side, but we're getting a blend of sling systems, right? Cross, like if I'm pressing here and I've got this rooted, right? This guy here, it's rooted into the ground, right? I'm solid. Sets me up for a solid press from a diagonal aspect, but this guy's still doing work, and it's got a little heavier load, appropriate load. So you can see we've got a good bunch of layers there. We add a little bit of that locomotion. I know people like to do the walks, right? Bottoms up walks. Maybe you're space cramped. Maybe you're training at home. Maybe that's what you do, right? You can just step, press, come back, press, right? Light enough kettlebell. You could, I mean, if you're a bro sesh type, you use light enough kettlebell, you can get a lot of reps in there. So have a great month. We'll talk to you in May. We might be coming to you from Farm Strong in May. So stay tuned. Have a great month.